I think we're all good to get started. So thank you all so much for coming. We're on our third and our final general training session, which is super exciting. And then after our software and hardware session that's coming today and tomorrow, you guys will be all set to start forming teams. So that's super exciting. All right, so moving on to a brief introduction for me, I guess. I'm an Ignite student organizer and the co-captain of the Clueless number 11212, based in San Diego, California. I have 9 years of first experience and 4 years of FTC experience specifically. In this past season, we won the World Championships alongside Team TechSpan. You've probably been hearing a lot. All right, so today the main topic of discussion is going to be fundraising, but we're also going to talk a little bit about Ignite team formation and the next steps for participating in the Ignite and the FTC programs. And then we'll talk about the assignment like usual at the very end. So if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat and I'll talk about them at the end, or you can also put them on the Discord or wherever you want, really. We'll find it. All right, so starting with fundraising. So why should you fundraise? The way Ignite sees it is our starter kits for you guys are like a boost to get your robot started. But beyond that, you'll probably want a little bit of financial independence to be able to purchase additional parts, materials, machinery like 3D printing and stuff. And there's other costs and fees such as registration. So being able to have a little bit of financial independence is going to allow your team to be able to experiment with things a little bit more and just be able to make your own decisions. You're not going to be as limited as you are with just the starter kit. So we do highly encourage all teams to be fundraising, regardless of if you get the starter kit or not, so that you are able to have these opportunities and this flexibility. So to talk a little bit more about the different types of fundraisers, there's three main kinds. So that's corporate sponsorships, which we'll be talking the most about today. So this is like any company that's going to give your team specifically money. There's also grants, which are essentially the same thing, except each company will have an application to receive that grant. So you're applying for this money instead of just reaching out to random companies asking for it. You can also set up individual donations. So this is like maybe friends and family who are interested in supporting you and supporting your team can kind of pitch in a tiny bit to help support you, and all of that can sometimes add up to be a reasonable amount. And then the final type of fundraiser is events. So that could be like small bake sales or lemonade stands or kind of those small events where you do something in exchange for money. Uh, so like I mentioned earlier, we're going to be focusing the most on corporate sponsorships and grants because these are typically the most successful and the best way to kind of fundraise the most amount of money. All right, so first, how do we find sponsors? The first and most important thing that you should do is reach out to the people that you know and people that your parents know and your coaches know and whoever else knows. Because when you have a connection to a certain person or a certain company, you're going to have a much higher rate of success when you're trying to reach out to them, get a response, and get money from that for your team. So anyone you know, it'll help, trust me. And then second to that, if you don't have a connection existing to some person or some company, look for any company out there, but finding commonalities with specific companies can really help you. So, for example, STEM companies could help, robotics companies, local companies to you, or companies that support youth and education are all really great places to start. But at the same time, like you don't want to limit yourself. So reach out to whoever you can. Finding those connections can help though. So just keep that in mind. All right, next let's talk about cold emailing. So cold emailing is a process of sending emails to companies that you don't currently have contacts with. So you don't know this company, you just found their email somewhere and you're reaching out for the first time. They know nothing about you. There's a couple of steps as to writing cold emails, and every team is going to have their own process. This is kind of just the general outline for how you want to set up your cold emails. So first, you need to write the template. The template is what you're going to send to every single company, and you might change a couple of words here and there, like you're addressing it to, say, like Amazon, and then you address it to like your local restaurant or something like that. So you're going to change a couple of words, but for the most part, your template is going to stay the same for all of the companies you're reaching out to. Next, you're going to collect emails from various companies or just contacts in general. So this could look like reaching out to people you already know and getting their emails, or it could be like just going on Google, searching for different companies and pulling their emails out of their websites. However that would look for you, and then somehow make a list of all of those companies and all of those emails that you found. Third step is you're going to actually send those emails to those companies, usually just email them. But sometimes you might also call companies, which we'll talk about briefly later. And then the last thing you want to do is make sure you're tracking which companies you've already sent emails to, so that way you're not like sending emails to them twice or anything. It'll just keep it more organized for your team and you're able to reach more people. All right, so in terms of the template outline for your cold email, we're not going to provide you guys like a specific example or anything. Rather, we want to provide you the basic questions you should be answering in this email that companies might look for so that you're basically covering everything. So the first thing is, who are you? What is the program you're in? So what's unique about your team? How many people are there? Are you guys high schoolers, college students? Like, they need to know that basic information so that they can get an idea for who you are. Like, they're not just gonna fundraise some random students out there. They want to know what you're participating in and have that kind of like connection with you guys. And then why should the company sponsor? Like, what are you guys going to gain or benefit? Like, how is this going to change your team? And then how will the company benefit is also important. So sometimes teams will say, well, we can put your logo onto our team shirts, or we can advertise you in some way on our robot. And by doing that, you give the company a little bit of publicity and a little bit of marketing to kind of say thank you in exchange for the sponsorship that they're giving you, sorry. And then another important question is, how will that money be spent? Right? They want to make sure that you're going to spend it on like robot parts or materials or anything that are really crucial and fundamental to what your team is doing. They don't want you to just go randomly spend it on a bunch of like toys and like random things that aren't going to benefit your team, because then their money is not going to the purpose that they thought it would be. So make sure you're able to say, like, we want to spend this on robot parts, we want to spend this on a 3D printer, or whatever those materials might be that your team wants. Make sure you say that. And then the final question you should be asking is, what are the next steps? So you always want to kind of have a call to action at the end. So whether that's, can we please schedule a quick call in the next week or so to discuss this further? Or can you please let us know if you have any questions? Or if you're interested in sponsoring our team, could you please send a check to, and then you have some kind of like information for where to send that check. So you need some kind of call to action at the end so that this email is actually going somewhere. It's prompting some kind of conversation and the company can do something with that. So this is the exact outline that we suggest that you guys follow. You're more than welcome to include more information than this, but we do highly encourage you keep it as succinct as possible, because a lot of these companies are going to get very similar requests and they're going to have like a very full inbox of emails. So the quicker you can catch their attention and get all of this content out, the better for your team. Also, to note, this is going to be your assignment today for all of the students to write a cold email template based on these questions, so you can start thinking about that. All right, next to collecting emails. Again, you want to look at your existing contacts, ask for their email, and then send it to that email. Um, Even if your contact at that company isn't like the finance person or the person who's really going to manage this email and decide on whether they're actually going to sponsor your team, they can forward it to whoever in the company does handle those sponsorship requests. And that's going to give you a much higher chance of success that you'll get a response, because it's coming from someone internal to their company. They're much more likely to respond to someone who's already an employee there that they do know, rather than some random student or team that they haven't heard from yet. And then again, for cold emails, use Google, look at companies' websites, and try to find a method of contacting them through there. All right, next is cold calling. So cold calling is essentially a cold email, but instead of sending them an email, you're going to call their phone number and try to give your pitch there. So rather than writing out a huge like script or something, like your email is super thorough, you want to prepare roughly a 30-second elevator pitch for your team that's condensing the most important content of your cold email into this pitch. And this is because a lot of the times the person you're speaking to isn't going to be necessarily like the right person to handle your request. They might be like a customer service person or someone who deals with the technology that they're selling and trying to give you repairs or suggestions or advice there. So at the end of your 30-second elevator pitch, you want to ask if they would like more details or if there's someone else that you could speak to further to share these details. So that way you're getting an into the company and you're able to continue with your call. So the benefit of cold calling is you might have a slightly higher success rate because it's much more difficult to say no to students and people in general when you're like live on the phone with them. Emails you can kind of hide behind, play it off for a little bit, and then decide later, say no, whatever you need to say, and there's less connection. But when you're physically on the call with someone, they're more likely to say yes and want to help you out. So keep that in mind. They're also logistically more difficult, and that's because sometimes your school and the work hours will conflict for that company, and it's also a little bit scarier. So not all students are going to feel comfortable doing this, which is completely okay. We're giving you this option just so you're aware of it, and if you'd like to try it, feel free. But cold emailing is kind of the standard for what most teams do in First Tech Challenge. All right, next let's talk about follow-up meetings. So many times when you reach out to a company and they do get back to you, they'll be interested in asking you for a meeting to discuss this further. So our best tip here is to be prepared for these meetings. Essentially what you'll be talking about is everything in your cold email, but maybe a little more detailed. A lot of the times they'll also want to be able to get to know the team better. So it's great to show that you're super excited, you're super enthusiastic about First Tech Challenge, about robotics, and showing that passion is really going to make companies more willing to sponsor you. Yeah, just be prepared for this. They're nothing too scary, especially when companies have said they're interested in sponsoring but just want to learn a little bit more about you. They're going to be super supportive of your team and super happy to get to know you. So it's nothing you have to be like super afraid of. All right, last major tip for getting cold email and doing all of this sponsorship and money stuff, get your full team involved. So regardless of if someone is more focused on hardware or software or outreach or whatever they're focused on, you really want to make sure the entire team is involved in trying to get these sponsorships and get this money. Because a lot of the time your hardware people might be limited by if they have the right parts, and so they're going to need the money. Your software people may be limited by other factors. So getting your whole team involved now will be super important to set the rest of your team up for success later. So what this could look like is setting a goal for each member to send X amount of emails or call people per week. Whether this is like 5 emails, 10 emails, whatever it is, figure that out with your team what works best for you. Everyone should be sending the same templated email. So once that template is completed and written, you all just want to send the same thing. Like don't write multiple emails that are very different to people. Just perfect one and run with it. Next, we highly suggest you create some kind of spreadsheet to track the emails that you're sending out, which is relatively straightforward. Just have a column for what the company name is, what the email is for that company, and then if it's sent, if you sent the email already or if it's yet to be sent to. That way it's really easy for the whole team to see which companies have we reached out to, which ones have we not, which ones can I reach out to, etc. Lastly, you want to be able to designate 1 to 2 people usually to watch the team email and be able to respond to companies promptly. So it's usually multiple people will have access to the team email. I mean, everyone on the team will have access, but you want to make sure there's a couple people who are responsible for it. So when you do get responses, you're able to answer promptly and it's not like a, oh, I thought you were going to respond, or I thought you were going to respond, or I saw it, but I didn't click anything, whatever. Just have a couple people responsible for it. All right, that's it in terms of fundraising and sponsorships. So next we're going to talk about the next steps for Ignite Robotics and team formation. So this is all essentially if you're interested in moving from the training phase of our program into actually forming or joining a First Tech Challenge team and all of that for this coming season. So next steps. This is kind of an outline of what we'll be talking about next. So you need to submit all of your team's assignments by Saturday, August 24th. That's the hard deadline because all of the Ignite organizers then need to go through all the assignments and take a look at the quality and effort of the work and kind of see where everything's at. Next step is sign up. So you can either sign up as an existing team or group or as an individual. So if you're not in a team, and we'll go into this a little more later. Also applying for a starter kit loan, if possible, purchasing your own equipment, and then also starting fundraising. All right, so first talking about those assignments. To be eligible for a starter kit loan, your team will be required to submit a minimum of 2 general assignments, 2 hardware assignments, and 2 software assignments. And these must be from at least 3 different team members. Sorry, I'm blocking one of these QR codes. There we go. Okay, so to take a look more into the minimum eligibility for these starter kit loans, go ahead, scan this QR code at the top here. This one for minimum eligibility. It'll take you to a Google Doc that has all of the eligibility requirements for applying for one of these starter kit loans. So I'm not going to go through that entire list right now, but go ahead, check it out. And then if you want to check the submissions for your assignments or see if other people in your team have already submitted them, go ahead, scan the second QR code down here. It'll take you to a Google Sheet that has all of the names of the people who submitted each assignment. So I'll leave that up there for a second. And I'll also post these links in the announcements channel after this presentation. All right. Moving on to team formation. So we'll first talk about groups. So if you are already in a group of students with an adult coach or without an adult coach, just if you know at least one other person that you really want to be in a group with, you're going to be submitting this application. So it could be like 1 student, 1 coach, 1 coach, 5 students, 2 students, whatever it is, you're submitting this Google form. So you'll end up submitting either this group form or this individual form, which we'll talk about in a second. And these are kind of the final official application that indicates that you want to start or join a First Tech Challenge team. Also, please sign up as soon as possible for this so that we can start forming teams and getting everyone together to start working. All right, next for individuals. So if you're not already part of a group but would like to be grouped with a team or other individuals, we're going to try to group people based on their location. So to make it as easy as possible for when you guys do meet. So if you're an individual, which is probably most of you, individual coach or individual student, please go ahead and fill out this QR. All right, and again, I'll put these links on the announcement channel later, so don't worry if you missed them for now. All right, next is purchasing equipment. So if your team already has the funds to purchase the equipment, you can go ahead and do so ahead of the starter kits. And there are 2 options here. You can either get the full control bundle, which is option 1, for 35,000 Rand. It's the Rev starter kit and a control bundle. And you can just Google these terms and they'll come up from Rev is the site we buy a lot of our equipment from. So you can purchase it through there. And then option 2, if you want to use an Android phone, which is 30,000 Rand, it's the Rev starter kit, a control hub, and a cell phone in place of the driver hub. So slightly more economical. All right. Next is starting fundraising. So Ignite is going to continue its own fundraising efforts to be able to supply as many starter kit loans as we can to teams. So please send us your cold email introducing your team with a photo of your team. We will collate into team profiles and send to potential sponsors to raise funds for specific teams. So once you have your assignment completed today, if you're already in a group, it would be great if you can send your email to the info@igniteroboticsinternational.org email address so that we can kind of show our potential sponsors right now that, hey, we have teams that are forming and ready to go and they just need a little bit of support to get started. Hopefully this will help some of our potential sponsors who are going to see these profiles. And then next is starting your own fundraising effort. So using the guidelines we talked about today, using Ignite fundraising resources to help, and the assignment that you guys are working on after this are all great methods to actually start fundraising for your team. All right, In terms of the starter kit loan application, this is going to be sent in the announcements channel as we are still finalizing the last bits of this application. Please only submit it when you have your full team together, which is 4 or more students plus a coach, and the coach should be the one submitting this application. Although you guys can all work on it together because there might be some short response questions. All right, last is our assignment. So a reminder that our assignments are due Saturday, August 24th. So please make sure you have everything done by then to make sure that your team is eligible for a starter kit loan. Otherwise, it's not something that we can guarantee. And again, this is so that all of the Ignite organizers can take a look at the assignments and go through them to discuss that eligibility and who's going to be receiving starter kits. Finally, our assignment number 3. So again, it's the outline that we discussed earlier today. You're going to be writing a cold email template that your team could use to fundraise, generally following these questions. Who are you? What program are you participating in? Why should the company sponsor? How will your team benefit? How will the company benefit? How will the money be spent? And what are the next steps? So the assignment can be found on the QR code right there. And this link will also be posted in the Discord as well. All right, that's it, everyone. So if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat right now and I can answer them. Otherwise, thank you all so much for joining. Today was a pretty short training session, which is great. You can always put questions in the Discord as well. I'll wait for maybe another minute or two to see if anyone has questions. You can always put questions. All right, seems like we don't have any questions, so I'm going to end this live stream now. Once again, feel free to put your questions into the Discord channel and we can answer them there. All right, thank you.